is Tanya with Life with Tanya, and I'm back with another 2 Cent Tuesday where I share my thoughts and opinions on trending relationship topic and issues that I came across while scrolling around online. So this week's topic is toxic love and why you need to leave now. This is a topic that I hate to see trending, but since it is, I hope this conversation has the power to save lives so that the lives lost in these tragedies can serve purpose of awareness, prevention, and protection. Now, over the past month or so, I have come across at least 2 or 3 local stories where the husband has unalived his wife and then unalived himself. And this is just locally. I have heard of several more stories with the same outcome in nearby cities and states that just so happen to make the social media blogs. And so now we have two sets of families that are mourning their loved ones while having to make instant preparation on how to financially care for the kids that they left behind. But nobody in a healthy relationship woke up that morning and decided that I'm going to send myself and my partner to heaven today. So there are some signs, trends, and behaviors to look out for, and I'm going to share my 2 cents on what some of those are. And I'm going to start with the reason why some of these relationships are even formed. My 2 cents starts with the economy and finances playing a role in violent relationships, and it stems from the pandemic. My belief is that during that dark period of time, there was a lot of financial instability, loss of jobs, loss of lives, and so people literally thought that the world was getting ready to end right in that moment. So we have men and women who were probably single and partially dependent on someone else who was sick or they passed away. And then we had that single population of people who were alone and tired of being alone and didn't want to waste any more time being single and alone. All that to say, people were shacking up and getting married out of a means to survive. And some, if not all of those unions, were not God-ordained unions. What we are seeing today with these tragedies is the byproduct of the survival and convenience of those relationships turning into resentment, infidelity, and rage. And the two parties in the relationships feel as if they are stuck and cannot afford to live independently. And another theory as to why these relationships are formed in the first place is out of attachment wounds. Trauma has a way of confusing chaos as compatibility. And when two people quickly form a bond and seal that bond with sexual attachment, it is a recipe for disaster. Now, some of you may know that I'm working on part 2 of my book, I'm Celibate Now What? And it's more of a therapeutic piece where I go more into the therapeutic side of my relationship versus as part 1 just kind of talks about the relationships and what I learned from it. But the biggest chapter that I'm working on with part 2 of that book is the lessons that I have learned regarding my own personal attachment wounds. Now, I believe that everyone has attachment issues, but it's the boundaries and the self-respect that we set for ourselves that determines what we will and will not tolerate in our relationships. So thankfully, in my own situations, I have been able to recognize the patterns and put a stop to those cycles. And hopefully that book will be completed soon so that you can read and learn more from my experience. But of course, you will continue to get bits and pieces here and my life lessons on my 2 Cent Tuesdays. And my next theory as to why some of these relationships are formed are due to mental health issues. Now, with June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, the majority of these terminal relationships were initiated by the man. And in talking about Men's Mental Health Month, that is not to excuse them of their crimes or get the women off the hook for their role that they played in these violent situations. But this is just simply to shine some light on men's mental health awareness. So some men silently carry their frustrations and burdens of the household, and most of them don't believe in talking to a therapist or sharing their concern with their partners. And then, to make matters even worse, if they married a woman based on survival or lust, they may feel that they cannot be vulnerable with that woman because emotional trust is not there. And so whether that men's mental health, whether it's generational, temporary, or lifestyle. If your mental health issues are not identified and resolved, and you attract someone else who also deals with their own set of mental health issues, it can lead to an explosive relationship where there's violence, shame, and abuse. Now, a few signs or suggestions that I can share that I hope can save someone from this tragedy of these type of relationships is I highly recommend just being able to take care of yourself before seeking out a relationship and trying to find someone to help take care of you. Some men and women are just deathly afraid of being alone, that they put all their financial resources in trying to attract a mate. And all that does is create mounds of debt while having to settle for someone you are probably not supposed to be with. So, women, they put all this money into, and there's nothing wrong with, glamming yourself up, getting your hair and nails done, or if you believe in mommy makeovers and body surgery, if you're into that type of thing. I don't believe anything is wrong with that. If that helps boost your self-esteem and your self-confidence, then go for it. But when you start to overextend yourself and get yourself into loads of debt with the hopes of attracting a man, or vice versa, if you're a man and you're overly extending yourself and you love bombing women with elaborate gifts and lavish trips and things of that sort that you cannot afford, then again, it creates mounds of debt for yourself while having to settle with whoever was okay with receiving your gifts. Having to settle with someone that you're probably not supposed to be with. And then, of course, the more debt that you in, the more rage and resentment that you have. And it's not a healthy way to go into a relationship, and it's definitely not a healthy foundation to build for a relationship. So, again, try to be independent and take care of yourself before going into a relationship. That way you are a 100% whole individual, merging your life with someone else who's also 100% whole, instead of you bringing 50% into a relationship and that guy bringing 50% of the relationship. And the next sign to pay attention to in these type of tragic relationships, or how to avoid or get out of them, the next sign I would recommend paying attention to is the frequency and the rage of the arguments. Arguments are inevitable. There's going to be disagreements and conflict. But if you guys cannot respectfully talk to each other without hitting below the belt or taking cheap shots at each other, then it's probably time to separate, because the more you two continue to disrespect each other, the more damage is done to the egos. And it's best to leave early on and to avoid the risk of something tragically happening, because the more below the belt that you take at each other, somebody's going to eventually snap, and it's not going to be a pretty sight. And my last sign to look out for would be age gap relationships. The biggest issue with age gap relationships are maturity levels. Older men like younger women because it makes them feel younger and more powerful. But however, a younger woman may enjoy the financial security that older man has to offer, but she may not want to feel as if she's being controlled or stuck at the house all the time and having to cook, clean, and raise kids. And so the imbalance in mindsets will clash in the household. The woman or the young woman, she's going to be outside partying with her friends, outside, possibly even infidelity going on. And the man, he's going to feel disrespected, jealous, and embarrassed to his peers, because he feels that he doesn't have any control over his woman. So pay attention to these signs and dynamics when entering or staying in a relationship with an older guy or a younger woman, and exit or make adjustments sooner rather than later. Now, coming up with reasons why women stay in these types of relationships can range from anything to financial security, physical pleasure, or the security of having a man in the house. But one of the reasons I can think of traces back to a conversation we talked about a few weeks ago, which was on judging baby mamas. My guess is young women or new mothers, they stay in these type of abusive relationships to avoid the social embarrassment of being a single mother. And this is why I'm overall just passionate about the judgment towards single mother. Because a mother having the courage to leave an abusive or toxic relationship is much better than a family having to plan a funeral for their daughter or loved one. So the next time you or someone you know jump on a platform and decide to make fun of the baby mama, just consider the circumstances that she may have just freed herself from. But overall, I personally believe that a relationship with your God-ordained spouse is supposed to be a match made in heaven. Will conflict arise? Yes. But you deal with that conflict in a healthy and mature manner. You respect each other and have open, honest, and intelligent conversation. Cheating and abuse is not part of the ups and downs that a relationship or anyone inside of a relationship should have to settle with. It should not be tolerated because most relationships truthfully never recover from such abuse and betrayal. But for every story that was recently published in the media outlining these types of relationship tragedies, my prayers and condolences goes out to the family. And if you know a man, or maybe you're a man listening to my 2 cents, if you are struggling in the area of your mental health, according to Google, you can call the crisis hotline at 1-800-273-8255. And for anyone else listening, you are welcome to deposit your 2 cents on any points mentioned here, or you can simply drop a prayer emoji or a purple heart in the comment section to show respect and support for the survivors and the families who are grieving their loved ones. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to boost my engagement, and come back and see what we talk about on our next 2 Cent Tuesday. Until next time.